Here we are once again with another Battlebots review. It's episode 14, let's do this. Now in this intro we actually got to see the giant nut again, which it's been a while, hasn't it? It's always good to see what everyone's fighting for. Now today's fight card looked incredibly interesting. Some fights like Starchild vs Huge and Mammoth vs Kraken I felt were pretty obvious as to their outcomes, but some fights could genuinely go either way, such as Triton vs Horizon, Bloodsport vs Beta, and the main event of Black Dragon vs Riptide. So I was very curious to see where this would go. And now for our first fight, it was Huge vs Starchild, which I was certain Starchild was basically screwed. They need to be able to hit their weapon pretty precisely, which has proven to be an issue for them this season, while Huge's major strength, apart from those wheels, is that it's basically nearly impossible to avoid that spinning bar when coming at them, which, as we've seen, that bar is on a whole other level this season. Now the battle begins and Starchild races in while Huge gets up to speed. Starchild does get some thwacks in, but Huge at the same time brings the pain with their spinning bar. Huge continues the assault while Starchild begins to flop around like a fish out of water. You can see Starchild trying its best to recover, but Huge continues tearing into them. Starchild ends up stuck in the screws for a moment, and Huge ends up knocking them loose with just another colossal hit. Starchild is barely hanging in there at this point, but refuses to give up as Huge continues to tear them apart. With a limp and their weapon no longer working, they're basically done for. But as if to add an exclamation point, Huge rips a chunk off of Starchild's wheel and then sends the disc flying into the ceiling. And my god, this is what I like to see. If a robot's going to get this badly decimated, I want it to be because the other robot is actively wanting it, and Starchild is refusing to give up and actually makes it to the 3 minutes and to the judges. But you can tell by the team's expressions, they know there's no hope for them here, as the judges rightfully give it to Huge. And I have to give Starchild credit for getting a little in early on and just surviving more than anything, because with that kind of damage, 99% of robots would never have made it all the way through that. That was incredible! Still, Huge is easily one of the best Virgil spinners in this season and might genuinely be a top contender for the giant nut. Robots like Endgame, Witch Doctor and Minotaur better beware, as their established strategies might end up being under threat, as we might get to see Huge do to them what I had originally hoped they would do to Bite Force back in the day. Honestly, Huge has me extremely excited because it has the potential to really throw the spanner in the works as to anyone's prediction for the giant nut. Now with that out of the way, next up was Shatter vs Ominous, which I was admittedly a little unsure on, given how Shatter normally is a very strong contender but has just been having a bad season. Meanwhile Ominous, who many have been excited about, including myself, to see based on his performance in the UK, has been failing to deliver as strongly in the US. This means that really neither robot is delivering at full potential so far this season and really need to redeem themselves in this fight. Still, with two robots with that omni-wheel drift drive, I knew it could be a very fun driving contest. Now the match begins and both robots drift around a bit, meaning Ominous can get up to speed, but Shatter does get some nice shots to start off with, even piercing Ominous's, I think, HDP armor, though Ominous does return as they smack Shatter upwards. Shatter already looked a little bit shaky after that, but they keep firing hits, taking another blow from Ominous, and then after firing some more shots as they manage to rip off one of those sheets. The two end up a lot more cautious than before. By the time Shatter gets in position, they miss some of their swings. Now it seemed the drive of the two robots was struggling at this point, but both managed to exchange some more blows. Shatter's drive I felt was a little bit more worse off, as while Ominous isn't being aggressive, Shatter was struggling to keep moving. Ominous does get another shot in before the spinner stops, and it seems like Ominous is beginning to give up the ghost, as Shatter ends the fight swinging but mostly missing as it goes to the judges. Now the judges end up giving it to Shatter in a unanimous decision, which I can generally agree with based on the damage and aggression. Still, this is definitely one I could see being argued either way by the community with how Ominous fared. Again, I don't think we got to see these robots at their full potential, but it was nice to see them both, trading blows with each other. Before the next fight, they hype up Black Dragon's amazing work. Warrior, even if they got knocked down in their fight against Riptide, honestly deserve a lot of respect for making such a tanky robot. It's not just about the density of the armor or having the most powerful weapon, but as shown with Black Dragon, a lot of thought went into how to make sure Black Dragon can keep kicking on no matter what, really. It's genuinely great, and it goes to show that no matter what robot is in the competition, a lot has to go into making sure these things work. Next up was Triton versus Horizon, a situation where normally I'd assume Triton would have this based on Horizon having some pretty janky armor, but due to the difference in reliability, I genuinely couldn't tell. Triton has their long 80-pound bar for this one, the upper limit in how heavy a spinning weapon can be. So clearly they want to take advantage of the weapon disparity and rip Horizon apart. The fight begins and both robots take a second, but Horizon can get up to speed in a scary amount of time. Like, that thing goes so quickly before it stops. Then it spins up again, and then it stops. But then it spins up again! You get the idea. Meanwhile, Horizon has only one spinner working, so we're already off to a rocky start here. The two finally exchange some blows, and both doing some notable shots to each other, with Triton losing one half of its drive, and Horizon not looking too hot either, as it's barely moving. Triton manages to crab walk over to do some more hits, and eventually the referees decide that Horizon's movement is so insubstantial that it's counted out. Now, we definitely didn't get the big blows we were hoping for, but I do need to once again note just how quickly Triton can seemingly get up to speed. If they can pull it all together for next season, they could genuinely be a threatening force. An 80-pound weapon like that getting up to speed just so quickly means that they could really tear opponents apart before they even have a chance to think about it. If they can just get that armor checked out, they can get that reliability worked on, that could be really quite a good horizontal spinner. Horizon, meanwhile, was a fun design, but in the end, it was always going to be uphill for them, and it seems they have a lot they need to figure out if they hope to return next time. Next up was Bloodsport versus Beta, and I was super excited for this one. Bloodsport comes out with the disc, which, while it might seem odd, I feel was a smart option. With how Beta's front wedge is proven to be able to endure robots like Tombstone before, I felt they were gonna go for the long game here and aim for the back instead of trying for a quick KO. I mean, keep in mind that the way that Tombstone won in the end was by disabling the hammer, not by destroying the wedge, so trying to last a while makes sense. Beta meanwhile comes out with the thinner hammer, which again makes sense, as it can bend and deform and still keep going, instead of fracturing like the regular hammer, which is going to be extremely important when fighting a robot like Bloodsport. Now the fight begins, and I am trying desperately to ignore Bloodsport's laptop. Bloodsport is up to speed pretty quickly, but as expected, Beta's wedge deflects the blows like it's nothing, and they manage to repeatedly upset the balance and cause Bloodsport to bounce around. Beta also manages to get a few swings in. Beta goes in again and is using Bloodsport's power against him, making them bounce onto the upper deck. It's like a game of pinball, people. They continue hunting Bloodsport down, pinning them against the screws and aiming for that weapon motor. Bloodsport gets their first major shot against Beta, but Beta just shrugs it off and continues to suffocate them, ramming them into the walls repeatedly. Beta keeps pinning and swinging, throwing Bloodsport all around and using its energy against them. We're really getting to see how the veteran hammer drivers utilize the robot effectively. Bloodsport does manage to wedge Beta, but the kills just make it so that Bloodsport is unable to take advantage, and the match ends there, and Bloodsport was absolutely devastated, not even really getting a look in this fight, which I don't think anyone could have really expected, given the power of Bloodsport and how Beta, it's a Hammerbot. Hammerbots don't typically do this well, especially in the modern age. But the judges give it to Beta. Now, this was a fun fight for Beta fans like myself. I love Bloodsport as well, and I am admittedly also a little sad that they haven't been able to get this design where they want it to be. But Beta was supremely impressive, and I think absolutely deserved that win. They are the best I think we've ever seen from them, and it's just been wonderful to watch. And to the Bloodsport team, I hope all the best for them in working out all of the issues that they've had to get them back to being such a competitive horizontal again for the next season. Next up was Mammoth versus Kraken, which Mammoth apparently had to switch out its drive motors, now going for ones that Hypershock used, which that's pretty good. But the real thing that really put them over the edge was that they brought a dog! Oh my god, I love him so much! The fight begins and Mammoth is noticeably faster, pushing Kraken away, though Kraken seems to think it's another green scaly robot as it starts hitting like Death Roll. However, Mammoth refuses to relent as it keeps pushing Kraken away. Kraken does get some more good shots in, but Mammoth is holding strong and gets another big hit in. Kraken seems to be struggling with the position of the weapon arm, as every time they try to lower it to get into that kind of death roll position, it ends up being too low and hitting the floor before stopping entirely. Mammoth begins flipping Kraken over, and they don't have enough ability to raise the arm in order to self-right effectively. Mammoth just keeps smothering them before finally letting them bounce back. Mammoth then goes in for more as Kraken continues to flounder around like a fish out of water, getting flipped over again. Mammoth is essentially just bullying them at this point and taking their lunch money as they finally back away, letting Kraken leave in the final 10 seconds, and their weapon finally begins spinning again. Unfortunately for Kraken, it's too little too late as the fight goes to the judges, who give it to Mammoth. Now I'll admit this wasn't my favourite fight. Well, I'm pleasantly surprised to see Mammoth pull out a victory, and its improved drive is so much better. Like, seriously, if they come back next season, I'd really like Mammoth to maybe consider, the drive motors that they used this time around, because I think that made all the difference. Mammoth has had some amazing fights in the past, and while this was fine, let me make it clear, I did enjoy the fight. This was like a 6 out of 10, maybe a 7, it was alright. Just nothing special compared to some of the quality fights we've seen from Mammoth in the past. Still, this gives Mammoth a chance to redeem itself and potentially enter the round of 32, which is honestly awesome. I love how some of this stuff is still up in the air, and it'll be interesting to see who finally makes it through. Then it was main event hype package time, which, given how Riptide is a controversy magnet this season, I'll admit, I'd be lying if I said this fight didn't make me uneasy. If Riptide wins and KOs Black Dragon, then they'll only cause more outrage as being the ones who to finally break the record. Also, why do they zoom in on Kenny Florian when he was just smiling and not saying anything? It was funny, but I feel like I kind of broke the mood of it. It's being all dramatic, and then you just get Kenny just happy, just enjoying himself. He's just vibing. He's just vibing, But anyway, before we get to the main event, we have Valkyrie versus Glitch. Now the fight begins and both robots get up to speed, but Glitch struggles in the beginning as Valkyrie gets a shot on the side and Glitch stops moving. Valkyrie hangs in close, which was the right decision as Glitch finally starts moving, then stops again, before finally beginning to move again. Both robots get up to speed as Glitch finally goes in and rips Valkyrie's fork right off. Valkyrie returns with some shots, and then one blow at their front causes Glitch to once again die for a moment. They begin moving after a while, but their weapon has died, completely cracked from the damage sustained. Valkyrie keeps taking shots at the back of Glitch where the wheels lie, and Glitch is barely able to move. Valkyrie keeps going in for more shots on Glitch, ripping pieces off of the vert. Now the fight goes to the judges that give it to Valkyrie for their dominating fight. While not enough in my opinion to make it to the round of 32, it was a pretty high note to go out on. Glitch meanwhile will really need to figure out what was wrong this season, because it's such a promising robot. It's shocking to me that it's fallen this much. Anyway, it's time for the main event now. Riptide versus Black Dragon. I've got to give it to Farouk for including 5,000 different memes in the Riptide intro without making me cringe to death. Like, that takes talent. Something that Farouk has evidently shown season after season after season. Also, Riptide comes out this time with some monumentally long forks. Black Dragon also has their heaviest weapon in order to come blow to blow with Riptide. Now the fight begins and Riptide races out, but Black Dragon tries going around. likely to try and manipulate Riptide into gyro dancing. Riptide, however, sends Black Dragon into orbit, and after that, it is just downhill for Black Dragon as they keep repeatedly sending them up into the air. Black Dragon keeps fighting, but are taking some obscene amounts of damage from Riptide, who buckle their armor before flipping them over and causing them to get counted out. Just as I predicted in a previous review, this no KO thing was brought up for Riptide to smash the record. There's a reason they don't really bring up no KOs. This, I feel, was almost perfectly set up so that Riptide would smash it. Now, if I can come to the defense of Riptide, as I know there's going to be a lot of outrage, Riptide didn't do anything wrong this time as far as I know. I'm not saying like the team. I'm not here to tell you that you should like or dislike the team. But in terms of this specific fight, the team didn't do anything. They simply just won and were able to knock out Black Dragon for the very first time. You can be annoyed that they were the ones to do it, but that isn't Team Riptide's fault. You know, you can blame them for the Shredderator thing, you can blame them for how they behaved in the Mad Cattle fight, but they just were perfectly fine. And in fact, they seemed a bit more humble this time around, which I was happy to see. It is a shame for Warrior to lose like this, but I'm glad they've been given the respect they deserve, and I hope they still get a pretty good seed in the round of 32, because it's just good to see Black Dragon finally getting some major kudos for actually being a pretty solid machine. Now overall, I'll admit this was another hit and miss episode for me, but definitely more hits than last week's, especially what was for me easily the match of the night in Bloodsport vs Beta. The main events really are beginning to get a reputation for how short they are, which is a little concerning. These are meant to be the marquee matches, and yet here I am going, blimey, Bloodsport vs Beta blew the main event out of the water. I don't know the decision-making process for how these episodes are put together, but I hope this improves heading into the next season. Anyway, with that all being said, I hope you all enjoyed this review. If you did, please be sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to hit that notification bell as well to be notified of future videos on the channel. Comment and let me know what you thought of this episode of Battlebots. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Tell me what you thought. And if you can share this video around, that'd be super appreciated as well. With that all being said, I'll see you all next time.